I am John Milton, a poet who lost his sight but not his voice. I remember the first mornings when the Republic still breathed, when England felt newly awakened and uncertain, like a patient rising after a long fever. I believed then that words could steady a nation. I believed that learning, discipline, and righteous argument could hold a people upright when the old crown fell and left a vacuum of fear behind it. I served not with a sword, but with sentences sharpened by study and conviction. My days were filled with ink and urgency, with pamphlets drafted in haste and revised with care, because history was moving faster than any single man could follow. At first, my eyes endured the strain. They burned, yes, and often throbbed at night, but I dismissed the pain as a small tax paid by any servant of public duty. I read until candles guttered, until the edges of letters trembled and swam. I told myself that a republic required sacrifice, and that sacrifice was proof of devotion. When Parliament demanded justification, I answered. When foreign tongues accused our cause, I replied. I felt chosen by circumstance, pressed forward by conscience, convinced that silence would be a greater sin than exhaustion. The Commonwealth asked for loyalty, not in ceremony, but in persistence. There was no applause, only resistance, suspicion, and the constant threat of reversal. Royalists whispered that we were usurpers. Clerics argued that obedience belonged to kings by divine right. I argued back, not gently, but with precision. I wrote defenses that named tyranny and dared to define liberty. Each page cost me sleep. Each argument demanded another day bent over books that blurred more quickly than before. I felt the dimming begin, a soft veil lowering over the world, though I refused to name it. Physicians warned me to rest. Friends urged caution. I answered them with resolve sharpened into stubbornness. How could I rest when the nation itself did not rest? How could I preserve my eyes while England risked losing its soul? I believed that Providence would not allow a faithful servant to be rendered useless. That belief was part faith and part pride, and I could not yet tell them apart. As Secretary for Foreign Tongues, I worked in constant vigilance, translating, responding, shaping England's image before watchful enemies. I wrote as if every sentence were a rampart. The pressure did not relent. News arrived daily of plots, of betrayals, of hopes dissolving. The Republic was fragile, always on the verge of collapse, and I held myself responsible for shoring it up with language. My eyes protested more fiercely. Light pierced them like a blade. Darkness lingered longer after sunset. Still, I continued. I told myself that blindness was a distant threat, a hypothetical future that belonged to other men. I had too much to finish to consider retreat. I had built my life upon learning, and learning demanded sight. To imagine myself without it felt like imagining myself erased. So I pushed harder, as if speed could outrun fate.
The day I could no longer read with pain arrived quietly. No trumpet announced it. The letters simply refused to hold their shape. I traced them with my finger, angry at their betrayal. I rested for an hour and returned, only to find the page unchanged and my vision worse. In that moment, fear finally spoke aloud. It asked whether the republic I served would remember my sacrifice, or whether it would consume me and move on, ungrateful and unmoved. I prayed then, not with eloquence, but with desperation. I asked whether duty demanded the ruin of the very faculties that allowed me to serve. I asked whether obedience to conscience required disobedience to the body. No answer came. There was only the slow narrowing of sight and the relentless demand for more words. England itself began to shift. Victories soured, unity fractured. The cause that once felt inevitable now seemed precarious. I sensed that my labor might be offered to a future that would reject it. Yet even this possibility did not stop me. If the Republic fell, I wanted it said that I had not abandoned it in fear. If it stood, I wanted my words woven into its foundations. When the darkness deepened, I understood that I was paying with something that could not be recovered. I felt anger then, sharp and private. Anger at fate, at God, at myself. But beneath that anger lived a quieter terror, one I did not yet admit. If my sight vanished entirely, would my purpose vanish with it? Or would I be forced to discover a different, harsher form of service still waiting for me in the dark?
The darkness did not arrive all at once. It crept, patient and methodical, as if it understood that I would resist anything sudden. Each morning I tested the world like a man pressing on a weak limb, hoping it would still bear weight. Faces lost their edges, distances collapsed, light ceased to comfort me and instead accused me, exposing how much I could no longer command. Yet my work did not lessen. If anything, it grew heavier, because the Republic itself was weakening, and weakness always demands louder justification. I continued to write for a government that was slowly forgetting why it had been born. Cromwell's death left an absence no argument could fill. The ideals we once spoke of with clarity were now repeated mechanically, like prayers spoken without belief. I felt this decay keenly because I had invested not only my intellect but my body in the cause. Every page I had written had cost me something, and now the bill was being collected. My eyes failed further, and with them my confidence that sacrifice would be remembered as virtue rather than folly. Blindness settled into permanence, and with it came a stillness I had never known. The world no longer announced itself through form or color, only through sound, texture, and the slow movement of thought. At first, this stillness felt like imprisonment. I had lived among arguments, among books stacked like fortifications, among voices raised in contest. Now the noise of public life had receded, leaving me alone with my own mind, and I was not certain I trusted it. Days passed in a rhythm that felt both dull and intense. Simple actions required negotiation. I learned the geography of rooms by memory and touch. I learned the habits of voices, the pace of footsteps, the way air changed when a door opened. Each adaptation reminded me of what I had lost, yet each also revealed a strange discipline growing within me. Blindness stripped away distraction. There was no skimming, no glancing ahead, no escaping a thought once it arrived. Everything demanded attention. I wrestled most fiercely with God. In my youth, faith had felt ordered, almost architectural. Doctrine aligned with reason, scripture conversed with philosophy. Now faith arrived without structure, pressing questions into me without offering diagrams or proofs. I asked why obedience had led me here. I asked why service to what I believed was justice had been repaid with darkness and disgrace. I asked whether providence had abandoned me or whether I had misunderstood its language entirely. Silence answered me again, but this silence was different from before. It did not feel empty, it felt watchful. In that watchfulness, memories grew sharper. I relived my education, the confidence of my early scholarship, the pride I had taken in mastery of languages and argument. I remembered believing that clarity of thought was the highest form of devotion. Now I wondered whether clarity had become a shield against humility. Blindness dismantled that shield. It reminded me daily that intellect alone cannot command outcomes, that truth does not always reward its defenders with success or comfort. This realization bruised my pride more deeply than any political defeat. There were moments when despair pressed hard upon me. I imagined the rest of my life reduced to dependency and irrelevance, a former public voice now silenced and pitied. I feared becoming a cautionary tale, cited by others as evidence that zeal leads only to ruin. In those moments, darkness felt absolute, not merely physical, but moral. I questioned whether my years of labor had accomplished anything of lasting worth. The Republic was gone, my sight was gone, my reputation was stained. What remained that could justify endurance? Yet endurance persisted, quietly and stubbornly. I found that my mind continued to assemble lines of verse unbidden. Phrases arrived with a rhythm that refused dismissal. At first, I resisted them. Poetry felt indulgent after the gravity of politics. It seemed insufficient to answer the scale of loss I carried. But the lines returned, insistent, shaping themselves into something larger than ornament. They reached backward into scripture and classical memory, forward into imagined landscapes of obedience, fall, and consequence. I began to sense that language itself had not abandoned me, only changed its terms of engagement. Dictation was humiliating at first. To speak and rely on another to capture my words felt like surrender. I worried about dilution, about misinterpretation, about losing precision.
But as I persisted, something unexpected occurred. Speaking forced me to hold entire structures in my mind before releasing them. I could not revise endlessly on the page. Each sentence had to earn its place before being spoken. This discipline sharpened thought in a way sight never had. Blindness demanded coherence. It punished vagueness. It rewarded patience. As months passed, I recognized that my inner life had expanded even as my outer life contracted. Isolation became a crucible rather than a void. I read inwardly now, drawing upon years of stored learning, testing ideas against one another without visual aid. The world of thought grew vivid, almost overwhelming in its intensity. Images formed, not as pictures, but as moral landscapes, populated by will, failure, obedience, and consequence. I realized that blindness had not severed me from creation. It had forced creation to speak through different channels. Still, doubt did not release its grip. I questioned whether this inward richness was merely compensation, a way for the mind to protect itself from grief. I questioned whether any work produced in darkness could matter in a world governed by appearances and power. England had little interest in my inner transformations. The restored monarchy valued compliance, not contemplation. I lived under quiet surveillance, tolerated because I was broken, spared because blindness made me seem harmless. This judgment wounded me because it misunderstood the nature of loss. Blindness had not softened my convictions, it had refined them. I began to understand that my earlier service, though sincere, had been incomplete. I had defended liberty in pamphlets and treaties, but I had not yet confronted the deeper bondage within the human will. Politics addressed symptoms. Poetry, I was beginning to see, could address origins. This realization unsettled me because it suggested that my greatest work lay ahead, not behind, and that it would require me to trust a path revealed only in darkness. At times, fear returned with force. What if my mind failed next? What if memory eroded? What if the inner world I relied on collapsed as suddenly as my sight had? These fears haunted the edges of my resolve. Yet alongside them grew a quieter conviction, one that did not shout but endured. Perhaps blindness was not merely loss, but summons. Perhaps I had been removed from the noise of public struggle so that I might confront a more universal conflict, one that did not belong to England alone, but to all fallen beings. I did not yet know how to answer that summons. I only knew that the darkness surrounding me no longer felt like punishment alone. It felt like a threshold, and thresholds demand a crossing, whether one is ready or not.
The work announced itself slowly, not as command, but as pressure. I did not wake one morning resolved to undertake something vast. Instead, the thought of it returned again and again, persistent as breath. I felt it in the ordering of my thoughts, in the way certain themes refused to loosen their grip. The work came to its end, not with triumph, but with release. There was no moment of celebration, no sense of victory over blindness or fate. There was only a quiet exhaustion, the kind that follows obedience finally completed. I had carried the weight of it for years, holding whole worlds in my mind while darkness surrounded me. And when the last lines were spoken, I felt less like a conqueror and more like a man who had set down a burden entrusted to him long ago. By then, my life had narrowed almost completely. Public affairs no longer sought my opinion. My name circulated carefully, often with discomfort, sometimes with respect, rarely with warmth. The republic I had served was spoken of as a failed experiment, and I, as one of its most dangerous thinkers, now rendered harmless by blindness. I listened without protest. I had learned that vindication is a poor substitute for purpose. The judgment of the age had already passed over me, and it did not ask my consent. Blindness, which once felt like theft, had become condition. I no longer woke expecting sight to return. I navigated the world through memory, through trusted voices, through the interior map I had built slowly and painfully. There were moments of frustration still, moments when dependence cut sharply against my nature. Yet these moments no longer defined me. I had learned that usefulness does not belong exclusively to those who see. Thought has its own eyes. Faith has its own light, though it is colder and more demanding than I once imagined. Looking back, I saw my life not as a sequence of injustices, but as a narrowing corridor. Politics had taught me urgency. Blindness had taught me patience. Failure had stripped away illusion. Success, when it finally came, arrived without applause and therefore without corruption. I understood then that my earlier service to the Republic, though sincere, had been incomplete. I had fought for liberty in the realm of power, but I had not yet confronted the deeper captivity of the human will. That work required darkness, isolation, and a voice forced inward before it could speak outward again. I no longer raged against God as I once had. The questions remained, but their tone had changed. They were no longer accusations hurled upward, but inquiries carried carefully, as one carries something fragile. I did not claim to understand providence. I had abandoned that arrogance. What I understood instead was responsibility. If sight was taken, then listening was required. If public influence was withdrawn, then inward integrity was demanded. Blindness had not excused me from labor. It had refined the kind of labor required. I thought often of the Republic in those later years, not with bitterness, but with sobriety. It had fallen as all human constructs fall, subject to fear, ambition, and weariness. I did not regret serving it. I regretted only my certainty. I had believed that righteousness, once articulated clearly, would prevail. I learned instead that truth may endure without prevailing, and that endurance itself is not failure. As age pressed upon me, memory became both companion and judge. I revisited my younger self, confident, sighted, convinced that reason could order the world. I did not despise him, I understood him. He had not yet been taught what darkness teaches. He had not yet learned that purpose survives even when reward does not. I wished I could tell him that loss would come and that it would not be the end. But such knowledge cannot be borrowed. It must be paid for.
If my life holds any meaning, it is not that I overcame blindness, but that blindness did not excuse me from obedience. I served a fallen republic and paid with my sight, yes, but the greater cost was pride, and the greater gift was perspective. In losing the visible world, I was forced to confront the invisible forces that govern it. Now, when I sit in the quiet, I do not feel abandoned. I feel finished in the only sense that matters. My voice did not survive because of strength, but because it learned when to listen. Whether the world remembers me kindly is no longer my concern. I have learned that purpose does not require approval, only faithfulness. And in the darkness that once terrified me, I have come to understand that silence itself can speak, if one is willing to endure long enough to hear it.